You're listening to the Fezcast, the Saracens fans podcast, bringing you the independent and unhinged views of the voices in our heads, as well as those of our special guests. To get in touch with us, find the Fezcast on social media and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube and more. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy this week's show.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Fezcast Christmas special, I suppose, or the Lemsip Special, as I think it is, between myself and James, will be with us in a bit. This is going out a bit late because, funnily enough, none of us actually wanted to edit the show on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. But we've got a show in two parts, as we might usually do, because it's two decent games of rugby to chew over, both of which I've seen, both of which Alex has seen, who's with us as well. And both of which Jez has sort of seen. So we're doing all right. But first, Jez, I haven't seen you for a little while, mate. How are you doing? You all right?
I'm very good, thank you very much, Matt. Enjoying the Christmas beers on the Monday evening as we record. And, it's after a fine weekend of performances for Saracens. Yeah, really feeling really good sort of thing. So, yeah, well happy.
Excellent. Well, I'm on the lemon squash, so I'm partying hard, me. And I bet, Alex, you've got an eggnog or something on the go, probably.
I've got water at the moment, but we had people around on Friday, so I had some fizzy drinks then.
Excellent. And James has just joined us as well, and looking a lot more well than I thought he might. How are you doing, James? You okay?
I'm doing all right. The voice goes in and out, which is great for podcasting, but I'm good otherwise. You guys all right?
We're ticking along. Right, we are going to dive straight into the first game of the weekend, the women's match. It was described as a tale of two halves at one point, but that was about 30 minutes into the game. So I was a little bit confused by that one, but it did seem to ebb and flow backwards and forwards. And Bristol Bears started off certainly the better team, going 14-0 up pretty quickly with Zoe Harrison picking up a yellow card. Two questions for you, Alex. Do you think Zoe's yellow card was actually warranted? And second question, it looked like quite a few people stepped up in the absence of Zoe Harrison, didn't it?
Yeah, I don't think Zoe really deserved that by half, because she was trying to get over the ball after Alicia Corrigan made the tackle, and I think Sarah Byrne rolled on the floor, which she shouldn't have. So I don't think it was really deserved, as Jess Breach said on commentary. But I think Sarah McKenna really stepped up. She got a 50-22 during that time, and took the conversion and got it. So yeah, I think it's good that we had that versatility within the back line to be able to cover positions and players get yellow cards.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah McKenna's an evergreen player, shall we say now? And, she's taken on a coaching role with the England youth side, and she's a really good person to have around the side, right, Jess?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we often talk about it across most of our Fezcasts. Having youth and experience, you need to find that balance. And Sarah is one of those players who you can always depend on. And at the end of the day, she might have lost a yard of pace here and everything, but what you don't lose is the inch of space at the top of the head. What Clive Woodward used to always talk about, the important players are the ones who know what they're doing and to do the right things, and that comes from experience. And like Alex Good, when he plays for Saracens, the first couple of yards are all in the mind, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. But no, Alex, you're right. Sarah stepped up brilliantly, and actually, while we were a player down, we actually started getting back into the game anyway, and scored 3 tries on the spin. The third of which is yet another player who needs to hand in their front row card, because Kelsey Clifford running in from 30 metres was just a joy to behold any time a prop gets running with the ball, right?
Yeah, and I think we saw that from both Saracens and Bristol with Sarah Byrne as well doing that.
Yeah.
But I think it just shows how the game's changed and how even in the front row, players need to be a lot more dynamic now. They need to be able to run. They need to be able to score tries like that if they want to be getting into, international teams and things like that.
right of Bristol. Actually, well known for it. Really, obviously, they've had Hannah Bottoman from us, who's always been quite a dynamic ball carrier. You mentioned Sarah Byrne, and you've also got Simi Pam as well, who's got that highlight reel of a try that I think she scored from inside her own 22 a couple of seasons ago, which was a real joy. But the big worry, even though we got ahead, was things weren't going particularly well at the set piece, were they? I mean, particularly the scrum. We seemed to lose over and over again, knocking the ball on. Actually, Bristol knocking the ball on quite a bit, and it almost was a bit of an advantage for them to be able to stop, take a scrum, and win a penalty back, right?
Yeah, and I don't know whether that's a bit of Hannah Bottoman knowing Kelsey Clifford so well and being able to kind of get into her weaknesses and use that to her advantage. But I think there's something we definitely need to improve our set piece over Christmas, because it won't help, and other teams like Exeter and Gloucester Hartpury will be able to take advantage of that, and that could cost us a semi-final or a final.
Jez, you're a bit of a scrub nose, far more than I am. I mean, both Alex and myself, I think we spotted that Hannah Bottoman was perhaps boring in sideways a little bit in the scrum. But did you pick anything up on the highlights?
Well, yes and no. I mean, the fact of the matter is that regardless of what they're doing, if Hannah's getting away with that, fair dues, you carry on doing it. It's up to Kelsey to sort that out, or whoever's up against her to sort it out. And if you've got her boring in on that side, you've got to bore out. You've got to stay tougher. And perhaps there's an element that if you're picking a squad that's not going to be scrummaging as much, but it's going to be great around the park, that's one of the the knocks you have to take almost. It's the payoff. Very rarely do you get players who are amazing scrummagers in the front row who are then amazing around the pitch. And likewise, you don't get many great scrummagers or vice versa, whatever. So is it the payoff? At the end of the day, Saracens got to win. So they would turn around and say they'll take that disadvantage because it didn't harm them as much. But as Alex says, you might come up against other teams where that will hurt you more. Is there other teams out there that can hurt you in that way? I would say that Bristol are probably the best scrummaging team out there. You look at Sarah Byrne and Hannah Bottoman. I mean, I think there's any team in the league would have them as their starting props, wouldn't they?
I think you're probably right. Yeah, I mean, it did sort itself out a little bit further on into the game. Whether that was partly Bristol making the changes and taking those two off, but actually I thought Carmen Tremelin coming on in the front row for Saracens actually seemed to shore things up a bit. She first came on at hooker, and then when one of our props received a yellow card, switched over to prop, and both positions she was playing, the scrum did seem to be a little bit more secure. So whether that's completely 2 and 2 equals 5 from me, but well done to Carmen regardless. But I mean, the main thing that kept us in the game, I don't know whether you agree with this, Alex, but was our sort of intensity in defence. We at one point turned the ball over inside Bristol's 22, and it led to Zoe Harrison scoring a try. And I think it was just that intensity that, when our set piece wasn't going so well, that did keep us in it, right?
Yeah, I think Bristol definitely had a lot more opportunities to score tries.
Yeah.
They had, almost 70% of the possession. So they, for large parts of that, looked like they could definitely win the game. But we managed to hold them out, and they only, scored a few tries. So I think definitely there's a lot of work from the forwards to stop them scoring many more tries.
Absolutely. One thing I forgot, actually, is I mentioned Zoe Harrison scoring, and I think coming back into the team this season, she's mentioned herself before that she wants to add a bit more running rugby to her game. She's sort of been known as a good kicking fly half, but we're definitely seeing that extra running ability that maybe we didn't see in the last few years, and someone like Holly Aitchison is actually better known for. It's working quite well for her so far, right?
Yeah, I think, the try she scored was out on the wing. So I think that will really help her going forward to improve her game.
That must be a nightmare for you, Jez, watching a fly half score on the wing.
Well, rather that than seeing number 8s and open side seagulling, as we used to call it out there, and the scoring tries. But then again, it's an all-court game these days. You have to be able to fill in where you're needed to be filling in. And, that's the way it is. Gone are the days, or should be gone are the days where you're prescriptive in what you do. You're a prop, you do this. you're a second row, you do this, whatever, and more so in the women's game because of I think when you look at the men's game, when you can have players that are 5'6" like Anton Dupont or 6'10" or whatever, there's a greater disparity in size. So you kind of get put into those pigeonholes in the men's game. In the women's game, there's not so much a huge difference in sizes, and it's a bit like the men's game was perhaps 20 years ago where, you're all about the same sort of size, as it were. So, you can find yourself filling in and you can find yourself playing more and more positions. We've seen it with May Campbell, for instance, haven't we? That she'll play hooker, she'll play open side, and you probably think that May could probably do a job at inside centre if she had to.
Old, but yeah, no, you're probably right. Well, look, the final talking point of the game itself really is only sort of indirectly Saracens related, but right at the end of the game, ultimately we ended up with a 9-point gap, and Bristol were chasing the game, and had a chance for a bonus point with Holly Aitchison having a penalty pretty much directly in front of the post, and she managed to slide it wide. Bristol didn't pick up a bonus point. And when you look at the league table, with the top four are separated by 3 points at the moment, and Bristol are 4 points behind that. There's 6 or 7 games to go, depending on which team you are. That lack of a bonus point could be really, really crucial. I don't know if you've looked at the remaining fixtures, Alex, but how costly could that be for Bristol, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know who they've got to play, but it definitely could be. The top 5 are quite tight, and they're the only team to have won an away semi-final, but you really want to get a home semi-final. And it could mean that they don't, and they have to go away to Exeter or Harlequins or us or Gloucester Hartbury. So I think it's good for us to get the 5 points, but they'll definitely miss that going forward.
Absolutely.
I think that's a really important point there, because we mentioned it last week on the first cast when myself, John, and Duncan were talking about it, about this game being a potential splitting of the league almost in two. And it does look now that perhaps you're not guaranteed top 4, but this win has certainly put you in a favourites position to be top 4, which gives Saracens the opportunity to concentrate on getting that home semi-final. And I believe we've got, is it Quins away we've got, haven't we? And we've got Gloucester at home and Exeter at home. Those 2 games, Gloucester and Exeter, are going to be huge, aren't they? Because if you get wins there, that's going to put you in prime position to get that home semi-final.
Yes, we've already played Gloucester at home and won, which is good. But yeah, you're right. We've got Quins away and Exeter at home, which are going to be massive. And our other 4 games are against the bottom 4, which, to be honest, most teams are playing some of those bottom 4, and so far this season, nobody in the bottom 4 has taken any points off of the top 5. So you kind of had to look at those games across the 5 teams at the top, and it's the games between each other. Bristol actually have got to play Exeter twice still, because their initial game was postponed because of wind, I believe. But yeah, we've got 2 of the top 5. Gloucester have got 2 of the top 5. Quins, I think it is, actually have the hardest run. They've got to play everyone in the top 5 all back to back at the end of the season. So who knows how that's going to go. But with 3 points separating the top 4, Alex, prediction time. Where are we finishing?
I think Exeter will finish first. I think we'll probably finish second or third, just because Exeter have got a game in hand and they joint first at the moment. But I think we could definitely finish second or third, especially if we win against Exeter and Quins.
Jez?
I feel that we should be confident. This hasn't been a vintage Saracen season by any stretch of the imagination, and we're not winning games as handsomely or as comfortably as we have done in the past. But as you say, without wishing to sound arrogant or overconfident, 4 games, we should be getting 20 points. And then a home match against Exeter, if you get a win there, 24 points should see you, I would hope, top 2. So I'm going to say top 2.
Still reliant on one of Gloucester Hartbury or Exeter dropping more points, I think. So I think.
Well, I think Bristol Bears could well be the stick that goes in the spoke for somebody somewhere.
Absolutely, yeah. And Quins playing everyone. You never know. Now, I did as every nerd does, you go through, you predict the results, you see what happens at the end of the season. I did it, and I ended up with Exeter, Gloucester, and Saracens all on the same amount of points at the end of the season. So who knows?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, let's just have to have a three-way battle for first, second, third. But it did have Saracens in the top four, so we'll have to see on that. It's coming thick and fast though. There's 6 games left for us over the course of about 8 weeks, so we'll be keeping on top of that. And then the season ends in March, so it'll be over in the blink of an eye. But we'll definitely keep up with that. And it's good to have Alex around every week as a bit of expertise on it as well. But
we do really need to speak and say congratulations to Poppy, don't we?
We
Poppy
do.
Cleal, who's announced her engagement to Connie Powler of Queens, which is one of those weird things, isn't it, Matt? That it worries me that, I would hate to play rugby against my missus because, there's not many people in the world that I've been frightened of, and I played against the likes of Steve Ajomo and everything, so, fair dues, but I wouldn't want to play against my partner. And imagine putting the wrong bins out the night before and then playing against them the next day. But, congratulations to Poppy and Connie. It's wonderful news, isn't it, Matt?
It's fantastic news, yeah. No, really, definitely pleased with it. It is nice to see. Obviously, we do see Connie Powell around occasionally, and Poppy watches Connie when she's playing. So there is a bit of cross pollination across teams, which is nice. But yeah, you're right. I wouldn't. I have seen them tackle each other in a match. It is a fearsome sight. I'd hate to be a fly on the wall for any argument they have at home, like you say, about taking the bins out or anything. But yeah, no, it's fantastic to see. All the best to both of them and for the future. And yeah, we'll see when the wedding is and see if we get an invite. Probably not.
So we'll cover it on the Festcast. Offer that up to us. So we'll cover your wedding on the Festcast, probably.
Yeah, I would imagine the answer would be no. They're right. We'll finish there for the women's game. We'll take a bit of a break and we'll come back and discuss the men's game in a second.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
You are listening to the Fezcast, which is proudly sponsored by the Saracen Supporters Association, and I'm Alison Davis, one of the SSA committee. For a £10 annual subscription, the SSA provides our members with monthly newsletters, virtual and in-person player events, away match ticket allocations, and we organise pre-match gatherings at away matches. We sponsor men's and women's players, and we support the Saracens Foundation Track Club on behalf of our members. On top of all that, every year we have a seasonal SSA badge, which is exclusive to members. Where else can you get that much value for a tenner? Join now at membermojo.co.uk/SSA, or come and see us on match day in the Oasis at the Stonex.
This is the Fezcast.
Well, welcome back to the Lemsip Special. Actually, James, what's your cold remedy of choice?
You've got to go for the Lemsip, right? The Lemsip is pretty much the silver bullet.
Amateurs, bottle of low flyer, get yourself to bed.
How old are you?
Famous grouse. That's the only option. My dad, the king and queen, the king would tell you that the only way of dealing with a cold is to have a bottle of famous grouse. And one of two things is going to happen. It's either going to get you better or you're not going to care less anyway.
I like this. We're going to become one of those medical misinformation podcasts. So just a caveat there for any listeners. Alcohol is not
Alex,
the
don't
only...
listen to anything I said there because, obviously you're under the age of 18, so you're not allowed to take a bottle of whiskey to your sick bed, I'm afraid.
It's cowpole only for you, right, Alex?
Yeah.
Do you remember that strawberry cowpole you'd have growing up, though? How good was that?
Right. Anyway. You can tell it's nearly Christmas, can't you? Anyway, Northampton Saints. That's who we played. Blimey, I was there yesterday, and I've forgotten all about it because it was so cold. Similar game against Saints. I think actually to the women's game. Other than the fact that Saracens started off like a train, which was quite unusual. Not something that I was necessarily expecting because Saints did the double over us last season, and even though they're not doing too great in the league, I actually think they're looking quite good. But James, were you expecting that kind of start from us?
In an odd kind of way, yes, because I think we've played very well in patches throughout this season. I mean, my main takeaway from the game is that we didn't really learn a lot about the team. So Saints haven't been great this year. They were dreadful in the first half. The kind of Exeter Chiefs tribute act, if you like. Um, and we know that we can play well at home, good in the conditions, really great forward pack. We just can't do it for 80 minutes. And you saw that, I think, after half time. We had 15 minutes where we sort of fell apart. But, there were some interesting bits. I enjoyed one of my highlights of the season, maybe so far, was Marrow getting a yellow card and then somehow doing like a 10-minute TED talk to the rest of the team before he left the field. I thought that was pretty good. I thought lots of interesting stuff from the Welsh lads, actually. So Liam Williams, again, looking class. Lots of, kind of rugby IQ, winning a penalty, I think quite cheekily on a block. I thought a shout out for Nick Tompkins, 200th game. Again, just a grafter. I feel like he's never out of the team. He looks exhausted, but he's doing well. I thought Rhys Carey was an interesting one again because he's been so great around the park. He always looks exhausted, but he's constantly making impacts. I think he got caught, and there's maybe a parallel with the women's game a little bit here. He got caught boring in on the loose head side, which he has a tendency to do quite a lot in the scrum. And, again, as we were talking about with the women's game, the cheating's not the problem. It's the getting caught that's the issue. And he was getting caught quite a bit. So that's maybe something for us to keep an eye on. But overall, I mean, I was impressed. I expected us to win pretty handily. I think we played pretty well.
I think, from my point of view, as much as we played well, we were allowed to play well.
Yeah.
Saints in that first half were abject. And if you saw it on the television, when they went to the Saints shed at half time, and Phil Dowson, who's not the most demonstrative of blokes, is kind of quite a calm bloke. He's not a Steve Diamond type of guy, is he? I mean, he's pretty level-headed. And he was giving them the rounds of the kitchen sink. And then Sam Vesty was joining in as well. I mean, and Sam was interviewed halfway through the first half, and he just turned around and said, "We haven't fronted up. We're not here. We're still on the M1." And you could see them as coaches; they were absolutely disappointed. And I know you said Liam Williams had a great game, and I thought he did have a great game. And if you compare him to George Hendy, he's probably still waking up at the moment in cold sweats, figured that ball coming out of the sky. But they never ever put Liam Williams under pressure. And Liam had lit up a cigar, got a glass of brandy, was sat in an armchair having the time of his life, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Completely. I thought it was a good example of Van Zale having another good game because he recognised quite early on it's horrible conditions to try and catch the ball, and he kept pelting the ball towards George Hendy. But a terrible afternoon. And you're right, Liam Williams, it was kind of gliding through the first half. And you're right, it felt that way for maybe the entire first half, really. It was not massively testing for us as a team. And you kind of felt, even with their fight back in the second half, we were going to be fine to kind of get to the end. I
mean, I think the best thing about Liam Williams as well is you watch him do that and you watch him be class. And I still, to this day, and I've always laughed about it, I mean, he's like Clive Dunn, isn't he? Grandad. Bandy legs, educated feet. I mean, geez, how does he run with legs like that, Matt?
Do you think it's got worse, to be honest? Sitting in the stands in front of me, I'm sure his legs have got more bandy. The person sitting next to me actually said his knees are in two different postcodes, which is a bit unfair. But I mean, the bit for me to just pick up on from someone who was sitting in the stands freezing his whatsits off once again, it was slightly different to the wind in the Bulls game in the fact that in the Bulls game it was basically the wind was blowing straight down the middle of the pitch, straight into the south stand, direct line. And ridiculous to try and deal with. Whereas with the Saints game this weekend, it was a bit more diagonal across the pitch. It was sort of blowing into the southwest corner, but also it was really, really swirly. It wasn't, the wind in the Bulls game was pretty consistent. It was strong, but it was consistent. Whereas this, it was catching you out. It would be still 1 second, it'd be blowing a gale the next, and I think. Yeah, Saints just didn't cope with it, and particularly George Hendy. And I'm actually going to ask Alex this because she's been at some particularly weather-hit games over the last few weeks. I'm surprised you haven't got some iron boots to sort of keep you weighed down when you go to rugby matches now. But did you spot that as well? There's the matches you've seen, teams have coped with the wind pretty well, but Saints really didn't seem to, did they?
Yeah, and I think it's looking at like the flags on the side of the pitch and just seeing what way is the wind blowing at this exact moment and being able to use that to your advantage, which Saints didn't seem to be able to do at all.
I think the difficulty was that you probably were able to look at 3 flags and they'd be blowing in 3 different directions, but yeah.
The one person I want to bring into this conversation whilst we're talking about the wind and everything, though, is our standoff, who, we've gone through an almost entire show here. I haven't mentioned Mr. Farrell, ex of this parish, but it was almost as if Fergus Burke had been shown the Owen Farrell Red Book of how to play in pretty windy conditions, because he did absolutely everything that you would have expected Owen to do. No, Owen with 797 games or whatever it is at StoneX, knowing what the conditions are like. Fergus Burke, who's played 10 times at StoneX, dialed into it pretty quick and went, well, this is what we want to do. Keep it a bit low here, or we'll have a little dink over the top because it's going to bounce all over the shop. He had a really, really good game that was, dare I say it, James, a bit Owen-esque in its execution.
Yeah, I think so. To kind of say the same thing, Tom Willis, who, I mean, you could basically record this and play it in every single podcast for the rest of the season. He was incredible. He was physical. He showed why he should be playing for England. He's making Steve Borthwick look very silly. Another huge physical performance that was kind of reminiscent of Billy Vunipola at his best. He just turns up week after week after week and smashes the life out of people. And it's so exciting to have that kind of number 8 in the squad.
Oh, undoubtedly so. And I mean, I'm not going to mention it, but I just watch him in absolute admiration because it's just outstanding. Although very interesting, if you did notice on attacking scrums, he went to blindside, Juan Martin Gonzalez went to open side, and Ben Earl went to 8. I mean, that is, when we talk about players being able to move around positions like we did in the first half, that interchange between the back row is, I mean, it's got to really keep oppositions thinking, hasn't it, Matt?
As something that we used to do a little bit with Billy Vunipola at 8 as well. Occasionally, him and Ben Earl would swap around, and it never seemed to work, to be honest. But it does seem to in this situation. But I'm going to go back to Fergus Burke because actually I wanted to talk about him as well, really. And I'm actually going to go one step further. I think there were elements of his game on Sunday that you wouldn't have seen from Owen Farrell. It would have been someone else picking up the pieces from Tobias Elliott's kick through, or it would have been someone else who caught the ball from the knockback for his second trial. That's not part of Owen's game, and that's not it's no bad thing. It's just not the way Owen plays his rugby. Fergus Burke is a different type of player, but yeah, I do feel that was potentially his best performance in a Saracen shirt by quite a long way. I'd have possibly given him man of the match as well, although it went to Theo Dan for mainly for
47 minutes.
for not very long, but for scoring a try running through I think 5 or 6 people. I mean, I actually watched Henry Pollock score a similar try for Saints a few weeks back in the European fixtures, and yeah, Theo Dan doing exactly the same. I mean, he's getting better and better and better, and he is keeping Jamie George out of the starting lineup quite a bit. But
I think the interesting thing with Theo Dan was very quickly the fact that he was up against Curtis Langdon, and David Flatman and Tom May on comms made big store by this, in so much as that Curtis Langdon and Theo Dan are the future at England's hooker. I mean, Jamie's 42 now, isn't he? Or how old he is, and it's his time is coming to an end for England's. Hooker-wise, we're looking in pretty good hands with those two. They're very dynamic. But Theo Dan stepped up with Six Nations coming up around the corner and stuck his flag in the ground, didn't he?
Yeah, I think Steve Borthwick's kind of backed himself into a corner a little bit, really, with Jamie George as his captain. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. But other bit to mention, really, was obviously Elliot Daly dropping out in the warm-up. Suspect, given some late changes to the Amptill team this weekend, that was kind of known was a possibility. Sam Spink was due to play for Ampthill, and didn't, but was warming up with the Saracens team with a bib on Sunday. But it wasn't him that stepped into the 23. It was actually Angus Hall, 18 years old, and thrust into the firing line. But with a slightly makeshift back three of Liam Williams, who looks very good, but has only been back with us for 3 or 4 weeks, and then 2 youngsters in Tobias Elliott and Brandon Jackson, actually looks really very good, James.
Yeah, completely. It was slightly worrying, wasn't it? 15 minutes into the game, I think, when Liam Williams had to be seen by the medics, and you thought we were going to do what we did with Tens earlier in the season and just concentrate all our injuries in one position. But no, Angus Hall looked great off the bench. I think so much of this season, we talked about it right at the start, right, was bringing in lots of new, exciting players. I mean, Tobias Elliott, for example, Theo Dan has already had a season with us, but trying to bring some of those on. And I think it's really exciting to see some of the slightly older players kicking on as we'd expect, but mixing in some of that youth. And I just think the team's in a great place.
I think that's the main difference between us and Northampton Saints, because, both us and Saints have lost a lot of experience. I mean, we've gone through who we've lost. The Saints have lost the likes of Ludlow and Courtney Laws. I mean, Courtney Laws is a huge, huge loss to Northampton Saints, and they haven't coped with it in the same way as we have. And I think huge kudos has to go to Nick Kennedy and the recruitment team for identifying where we were going to lose players, but also identifying where we're going to lose players in the future. And bringing in players now to work with those players who perhaps have got 1 or 2 seasons left. We know Alex Scoody is going to be retiring at the end of the season. When's Elliot Daly's contract up? Is he going to get a new contract? So you've got to bring these players through. And I think we've done that so much better than Northampton Saints. But also, I don't know whether you agree with this, Alex, the rest of the league. We've really sort of like identified where we need to bring players through and have done it really, really good.
Yeah, I think that link with Ampthill is really good because players can get regular game time before they come in, and then they're still training with the Saracen squad, but they're still playing, every week with Ampthill, and it means they gain that experience before they start playing for us, which is really good.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, well, we've all answered this question apart from you, Alex, on this show over the last 8 weeks. This is what we've said is a transitional season with all of these new players coming in. But that win, 8 games out of 18, I think it is, played and has put us up in 3rd. Do you think that is about right for us this season? I think some of us were expecting maybe to be a bit lower in the league, but I think top 4 is good for us.
I think that's really good. We've lost a lot of key players at the end of last season. And I think, to be in the running for top 4 and to this close to the end of the season is really good.
No, fair play. James?
I was just going to lament that Newcastle game again, which I know you guys did on the podcast. But if we'd won that game where we were, dreadfully, dreadfully bad, we'd be up there pressing the top 2, wouldn't we? I was interested as well. I was going to ask, as we kind of reach the mid-season point in the Premiership here, let's say, aside from Tom Willis, because that would be everyone's answer, who have been your players of the season so far? And again, you can't say Tom Willis, because I think we'd all say that. Put the pressure on.
I would like to say, I think Tobias Elliott, as one of the young players, has really stepped up and has proven himself to be ready for the big table, as it were. And I mean, I don't think he's too far off of being a bolter for England recognition. Perhaps not Six Nations, but Summer Tour maybe, or whatever. But the player who's impressed me more, and I just love watching him play because I think he's fantastic. Rhys Carey, for me, has been one of the players of the season. He's been absolutely outstanding. And, he might get pinged scrummage-wise and everything, but I just think it shows how limited a coach Warren Gatland is, in so much as that Warren Gatland sets you all these statistical targets without actually looking at what does he do on the field. And, Rhys Carey is a very, very good player, and he never lets you down. And he shows for a front row, to be having it highlights reel. Not many front rows have highlight reels.
That's fair. I mean, the one that I'd probably pick out without saying Reece Carra is Alex Lazowski. I think he's actually someone that was possibly in danger of starting to drop down the pecking order at Saracens, which may still happen for as a bloke in his 30s. But he's had a bit of a renaissance and been picked but not played in an England squad. And I think he's that balance with him and Nick Tompkins in centres, it looks a lot less like they're being flogged into the ground, although Tompkins is. But yeah, Alex seems to be doing a lot more this season. For sure. He
had a great game when he came on the weekend. I mean, his defensive reads were outstanding, I felt. The way that he disrupted people. And again, you're right, Matt, because, I mean, he's up against Cincy, Sam Spinks, Ollie Hartley. There's an awful lot of competition out there, and he's sticking his nose just a little bit ahead of them at the moment.
James, you've asked the question. We're going to give Alex a little bit more time to think, just in case she wants to mention anyone else. But I need to throw you under it.
Yeah, I very wisely thought to ask the question, but hadn't prepared an answer. I would have said until a couple of weeks ago, Hugh Tizard, who I think really had kicked on. I actually don't know what's happening with the hearing and everything around that. Might be worth touching on.
We actually had a bit of false information on that. I think we were under the impression that his hearing was a few days ago, but it does seem to have gone quiet again. So, not sure.
It can't be a good sign. But no, it would have been Hugh Tizard, who I think's had a great season. But notwithstanding all the stuff I said earlier on about Reece Carra, and I do think he's getting away with a lot, boring in on the scrum. He's been brilliant since he came back, and as Jez says, we saw Warren Gatland really, really go after him. But as a dynamic ball carrier in the front row, it's stunning. And you look at that pack now, we've got so many different players, different combinations, different styles. You can put out, between Reece Carra, Theo Dan, Tom Willis, Ben Earl, Tizard, such a big, powerful, dynamic pack. And the hope is maybe if we want to do something in Europe, but I don't think we're going to win it, but go a little bit further, that might be the base to do some of that going forward. So Reece Carra as well for me, and Tizard, a little shout too.
Absolutely. Well, Alex, we've bought you enough time now. Has anyone stood out for you on top of everyone that we've mentioned here?
I think Ivan Van Zil's been really good, especially he's got that experience, but there's also that continuity while the internationals are away, during things like the alternations that really helps, because you've got a lot of youngsters coming through playing in the cup games, but then you also do need that experience to help teach them, this is how we do it and this is how you win the games.
Yeah. He's really growing into things as a leader, isn't he? That's definitely part of it. Right. What's next is a game against Bath. We're going to go down to the Rec, and we've got to face Bath, who I think are joined top of the table. I think them and Bristol are on the same amount of points, but yeah, it's probably one of our tougher fixtures. Just after Christmas as well. This sort of game really goes either way for us, Jez, doesn't it?
It does, and I think this game is probably the barometer of where we are this season as a club. And we've been to Bath before. We've got a good record at the Rec. 3 days after Christmas is probably as good a time to play teams who are flying, because you never know how they react to the figgy pudding and the turkey and the trimmings. But yeah, I mean, Bath really probably should have won it last year. I think they were possibly the best team in the league last year. You've got Finn Russell at 10. I mean, he's an outstanding player. There's no two ways about it. They've got a lot of good players. They've got a good, strong pack. I mean, Alfie Barbary at 8 is someone who should be, along with Tom Willis, ahead of Alex Dombrandt at number 8 for England, and doesn't get that, which is incongruous to me. So, yeah, I think, we could go down there. Like we said when we went to Bristol, and we were expecting, in the way that Bristol played, that we could be 75-0 down within 20 minutes almost, because Bath are that good. But again, I also think that the way that Bath play the game could easily play into our hands a little bit. So yeah, I don't know where we're going with that. I think if you come away with Bath with a point, whether it be for being within 7 or scoring 4 tries, you're going to say, oh, fair enough, that's okay, that's a result. But again, we could come away winning 12-9 in the mud bath that could be the wreck over Christmas period and go, oh, fair enough, we'll take that as well. I mean, I'm not going to predict anything, Matt. I just think all options are on the table. Like we say sometimes in the fifth day of a test match, all results are still possible.
I think I'm inclined to agree. But yeah, James, I don't know if you are as well. And I'm going to chuck in the game after that, which is Bristol at home. So there you are, top two games in a row. It's a big couple of weeks.
Yeah, I will predict. I think we'll probably lose quite narrowly. I think they're a brilliant team. I think Finn Russell gives them a bit more control than Fergus Burke does for us at this stage of his development. I think the way to approach that game is to, let's go old, incredibly boring Saracens. Caterpillar rucks, box kicks, keep it tight, keep it boring, just try and slog it out and see if we can get over the line. Because I think the strength we have this season, particularly against Bath, right, is I think we've got a much better pack than them when they're absolutely flying. So I'd try and do that. Bristol at home, I don't know. I'm pretty optimistic about that. I think we'll win that one. I think our home record's always been good. Yeah, exactly. It's going to be at least 100 points. But I would say lose next week narrowly, probably, and then probably win the week after.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, we'll be on top of all of that. But yeah, first up, it'd be probably a short one, as we've got the one game with Bath away, and then Bristol at home, and the women play Loughborough away the first weekend of January. So that's everything that's coming up. But yeah, I think we may as well stop it there. I think it is time for a shot of whiskey to try and clear the cold. That's probably a good idea. Just
to mention that I'm going on a date with Duncan next Sunday, off down to Ampthill to watch the Ampthill Pirates. Duncan's sorted out a bit of hospitality for us, which is very good. Old Two Jets has his uses, doesn't he? So I'm hoping we're going to be talking to a couple of people at Ampthill as well for next week's show, because that will be good. But
I'm going to start getting a complex about Duncan and his hospitality and rubbing it in my face, but there we go.
Just keep your eyes on when his WhatsApp comes through, because it's going to be good. Yeah, right, I'll have that.
We should say for the listener who can't see this, Jez there kind of physically rubbing his hands with glee at the thought of hospitality at Ampthill there.
Hey, look, you don't get seniority on this Fezcast without getting a few benefits in kind, as it were.
Well, I'm the one that gets the free sandwiches at the women's game, I'll tell you that. That's fine.
Rock and roll.
Yeah. And it's warm in there as well. Anyway, look, I'm going to say Merry Christmas, even though this is going to go out after Christmas Day, because, I'm not editing it before then. But yes, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, everyone, as well. And we'll see you on the other side. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jez. Thank you, James.
Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year.
See you guys.
Or whatever.
Bye.
This is the Fezcast.